Welcome to Streams of Income, hosted by best-selling author and entrepreneur Dr. David Powers, where we discuss streams of income, passive income, residual income, and even why there are dinosaurs and zombies in this intro. Fasten your seatbelts and get ready to dive in.
Hey guys, Dr. Dave here. Welcome to another episode. I was getting ready to say exciting episode and almost got tongue-tied, but another, of course it's exciting, episode of the Streams of Income podcast. Been interviewing a ton of people lately. Haven't done as many of these solo episodes because I've just had so many amazing people that I've had the opportunity to talk to. But I've also been reading a bunch. And so I like to give you updates, business ideas, streams of income ideas I get from some of these magazines I read. I still read a ton of industry magazines. And because of my dad's construction company that I was part of for such a long time, and I still help with some, I get a lot of construction industry magazines, and I like looking through them. I get some good ideas. I get things I can pass on to you, but also, I get some amazing pictures and ideas for my dream house. A lot of the pictures out of these go into my dream house file. Some amazing stuff. All right, so excuse me, pool and spa news. So there's been a lot of stuff going on in the pool and spa industry about laws mandating or assisting with swimming education. And I've talked about this quite a few times before, and it's only building. Now, here's the thing. This is still an area that is ripe for explosion, but it's early enough that you can still get into it. In the previous one, I talked about swimming education franchises, teaching swimming lessons on your own. I interviewed Rich Potter about franchises on a previous podcast. Be sure to listen to that one too, because there are some amazing swimming education franchises out there if you don't want to go through all the legwork of creating your own. Also, these franchises like that would help a great deal with getting insurance and finding places to teach, things like that. But pool and spa news, this is pretty cool because there is actually a mission that's come out of one of these big organizations. Oh, here we go. The International Swimming Hall of Fame has revived their Every Child a Swimmer program. And they've actually enlisted Rowdy Gaines, a very famous professional swimmer, in pushing that. So Every Child a Swimmer. So there is actually a national campaign from a national swimming organization about this. And so the big article in this latest one about Rowdy Gaines and everything he's doing there. And I mean, they're equating this with like a life mission and things like that, teaching kids how to swim. Because here's the thing. Here's why this is so important, because we're saving lives. I grew up in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and there is a place near there called Sandy Island. Now, it's one of those interesting places where the people that live on this island, it's very rural. It's almost like you step back in time when you get onto the island, but there are still families there, and their kids would have to take a ferry across the river to get to the school bus. Now, there was no road, no bridge, no anything like that to the island, and they liked keeping it that way. And so these kids would take a ferry to the mainland, and then they could catch a school bus, get a ride to school, that kind of thing. Well, when I was living there in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, there was, I believe it was a ferry accident. I don't remember if the ferry had trouble and went down or there was a collision with another boat or something, but a bunch of people died, a bunch of people drowned. Now, I grew up learning how to swim. My parents taught me how to swim. We didn't have a swimming pool, but my parents took us to the swimming pool. They took us to the beach, but they made sure we knew how to swim. And I'm thinking, you know what? If I lived on an island, one of the first things I would do is teach my kids how to swim. Well, here's the thing, though. Apparently on this island, it was a multi-generational thing where the parents, the grandparents, these kids, none of them knew how to swim, which seems crazy to me. Just as a responsible parent from that point of view. But when this ferry accident happened, a lot of kids drowned because they didn't know how to swim. They in the water and had no clue what to do to even doggy paddle to get themselves to shore. And so just it highlights why I think it's a really cool thing that there's a lot of legislation going on to help I don't approve of anything that like mandates things and says you do this or else, but I do think it's pretty cool that they're moving that into the schools. There's a lot of stupid crap that's taught in public schools. I think swimming education is one of those things that would be actually useful. And if you ever say to yourself, will I ever use this later on in life? Yeah, you may not ever use algebra later on in life, but I guarantee at some point you're going to use that swimming, if nothing else, to save your own life. All right, so Qualified Remodeler Magazine. Couple, and I'll rip these up when I get these things for you. Qualified Remodeler Magazine, and like I say, if you get a chance, always watch the videos of these podcasts. I love that you're listening to them in the car, on the phone, whatever. I listen to most of my podcasts when my kids are doing rec league football practice, and I'm walking around the track just listening to podcasts while I watch my son on the field. But watch the videos because I show some cool pictures sometimes. But Qualified Remodeler Magazine, let's see what we got here. Ton of talk about lead efficiency and lead generation. And this kind of bugs me because actually earlier today, and you can find the podcast in the listing, but I interviewed Omar Karbat, the CEO of Boots and Ladders, and he was talking about lead generation for construction and service businesses. And the crazy thing is these companies are spending, I think in this magazine, they actually said like $600 on average for lead generation for construction remodels and big projects, when the truth of the matter is in almost every service business out there, you need to just get your tail out of the office, go talk to people, go walk around neighborhoods, get hands-on with people, shaking hands, passing out business cards, talking to people. I guarantee it'll lower your lead generation costs. So if you're in the service business, any type of service business, or you're thinking about one, be sure to listen to that podcast with Omar Karbat. It's actually his third appearance that are recorded this morning for the podcast. The other two, though, are already up. You can listen to those already. But yeah, lead generation. It's crazy to me that they're paying so much for lead generation when they're just sitting in the office waiting on the calls to come in. All right, so let's see. What else do we have here? Report top remodeling projects for homeowner satisfaction and cost recovery. Now, this is just a tiny article. It's a market outlook article in the Qualified Remodeler Magazine. And here's the thing. Here's what I took from that. Top remodeling projects for homeowner satisfaction and cost recovery. In other words, if you if you have a construction business and you're kind of a generalist, you probably need to niche down a little bit. This is one way you can look at this. How could I take some of the jobs I do that create the most satisfaction for my customers and just do those? Well, you can look at a list like this and say, here's the top 10. These are also my most profitable jobs. I don't know if that's always the case, but that would be two very good indicators in your business that maybe you should drop some of that other stuff that usually just pisses off your customers, makes them mad. They're not happy with the finished product. They pay late. They possibly sue you because it's a hard thing to do. Drop those jobs. Do the things that make them the happiest. They get you the most profit, the quickest profit, that kind of thing. All right, here's another thing, though. If you're thinking about starting out in a service-related business or starting something, you could look at this list and say, you know what? I don't know what I want to do. I don't know what I want my niche to be. Where should I do this thing? Here is a list of good places to start and brainstorm and see if it's what you might want to do. So let's look at what they've given us here on the list. All right, let's see. Oh, okay, here we go. The addition of a primary bedroom suite, kitchen upgrades. Now that's a difficult one. Not difficult as in you can't do it, but there's a lot that goes into that. So it might not be what you want to tackle first. But you know what? If you're starting a service business, you could do aspects of these. Let's say and this is one of the things I talked about with Omar that he suggested quite a bit and that he offers on his Boots and Ladders platform. If you're starting out, you definitely are not qualified to do full kitchen remodels. Don't even try it. I guarantee, try that at your own house and see how happy your wife is before you try that as a business. But here's the thing. If people are satisfied with full kitchen remodels, they might also just be happy and be satisfied with minor kitchen updates. I'm talking, you could become a specialist in doing new faucets, in installing garbage disposals. The last thing we've done in my kitchen was putting a new dishwasher in And though it wasn't that hard of a job, it not being something that I've done but maybe one or two times in my entire life, it took us all day. And I got to be honest with you, in my little farmhouse kitchen upstairs, in this old house, it looks crappy. The trim's bad. Everything didn't work perfect. The dishwasher's functional, but it's not pretty. And so if you could be the person to do like this one thing, and then maybe you start gaining the experience and getting more referrals, things like that, and move into eventually doing full kitchens. But it's just that's one of the ways you can take a list like this and do something pretty amazing with it. All right, let's move on. All right, new roofing. New roofing. People, you stop leaks and it looks better. But that's also, roofing is an area where there's a lot of competition and a lot of, used car salesman type tactics. And so be careful with that one. All right, here's some easy stuff though, or some. A new steel front door. Just replacing entry doors. Doing nothing but replacing entry doors. You could probably create a full business off of that. In a big enough area, you could definitely do it. All right, closet renovation. This one, man, what? Every house has what minimum? Well, I'm not talking old, meth houses, that kind of thing. Just an average house probably has a half a dozen closets. And so you could do one and then maybe sell another one later, or maybe do all of them at once. But every house has closets and every house has multiple closets. So that's actually an easy one too, because a lot of the stuff that you would do to inside there, it gets covered up. It's not like people were where it's a mechanical thing like in the kitchen where you've got a lot of electronics, a lot of mechanics, things like that. Closet renovation to me would seem incredibly easy. Also, here's another one, new fiberglass front doors. So once again, just front door replacement. I wouldn't mind that upstairs in my house right now. I just finished ripping a door off the front of my house that I installed that it just never worked right. Probably the installer's fault. All right, let's see some more of these. All right, top remodeling. This is from realtors, and so things that help with listing the home that make people happy. Painting the entire home, painting a single interior room. They mentioned installing new roofing again, kitchen upgrades, bathroom renovation. Upgrading worn out surfaces, finishes, and materials. In other words, let's say cabinet door upgrades. Relatively easy compared to installing new cabinets. And so let's see, improving energy efficiency, which I wouldn't jump on that bandwagon yet because there's some talk that the EPA is going to be dropping the Energy Star program, and that's going to change a lot of things in the energy efficiency world. But let's see, that's pretty much it on that one. So lots of ideas there. Some areas where you could easily change your business, niche your business, or take on something new. And then the last thing I'll mention here, this is from Sean McCadden's column. Sean's had a column in here for a very long time. He usually writes a lot about the business of doing a construction business, and he's very good at that. He's always, I love his columns. He's always got some amazing things to talk about. And the title of this one is actually, Should You Take on the Risk of Educating Your Employees? So the gist of what he talks about, some of this, is that a lot of contractors are afraid of educating their employees, afraid of sending them to conferences, afraid of helping them get certifications, continuing education, things like that. And because they're afraid, they're just going to take off and start another business. Now, my point of view on that, and so, if you have this doesn't just apply to construction. I would assume this applies to any industry. The weird thing, I've even seen this apply to law enforcement because I live in a small town. And a lot of people try to get people that want to be in law enforcement, they would try to get hired into a small town like this on the police department so that they'll send them to the academy, base level instruction to be a law enforcement officer in South Carolina. Then they'll work there for just long enough to get the experience needed to apply for another job somewhere else. Now, it does happen, but here's the thing. And here's where this applies across the board with this law enforcement, construction, anything you do, is that if you are an awesome employer, treat your employees right, pay them a fair wage, not what they think they're worth, because everybody overinflates that one. But you pay them fairly, you pay them good, you treat them nice, and sometimes that's worth way more than the pay. then you can educate those folks and not have to worry about them leaving. They become better educated employees of your company, but because you're an awesome employer, you don't have to worry about them leaving. That's the thing. To me, if there's an employer that's afraid of educating employees simply because they're afraid they'll leave, or they'll leave and start their own business that competes, things like that, that tells me a lot about that employer. Way more than it tells me about their employees. And so you got to think about it from that point of view. I would say always err on the side of educating your employees. If they do leave, and some of them will, no matter how awesome you are, some of them will leave. But if you are the best employer there is and you're educating your employees, they're going to be even better. You're going to have a better company. So always err on the side of that one. So this is going to be one of the relatively short podcasts that I do. Just wanted to hit some updates since I've been reading these magazines lately. I've got a few more of these podcasts like this if you want some other updates, but be sure to tune in to some of the others. And if this stuff about service-based businesses really interests you, Omar Carbot, he's been on my podcast several times. Listen to those. He has created several multi-million-dollar successful service-based businesses. And now his latest venture is Boots and Ladders, which actually helps service-based businesses get their business with the lead generation, things like that, for way better than how places like Angie and I forget, Home Advisor, I think. Some of those places where you can buy leads and waste a lot of money on them. He's revamping that entire system. Also, as I mentioned, there's a podcast I did previously with Rich Potter, a franchise guy. And when I did the podcast, I haven't talked to him since then, but Rich was actually in the process of buying. He sells franchises and coaches franchises, but he was actually in the process of buying his own HVAC franchise. And so a service-based business. So it's always an avenue to check into. If you're going to start a business, I would recommend don't just jump out there and start your own business. Investigate franchises along with starting your own business and see what might work best for you. So thanks for tuning in. I look forward to seeing you or hearing from you next time. If there's ever any topics or anything like that, types of businesses, anything that you want me to tackle, seek out experts on, interview people about that interest you that we haven't covered yet, or just any ideas, feel free to drop them in the comments. Always look forward to reading those comments, and y'all take care.